So I'm Pamela Elfenbein, and I'm the director of the Institute for Healthy Aging at the University of North Georgia, and the CEO of Legacy Link, who's not with us today because she's at a meeting, Melissa Armstrong. She and I learned about ACAP, and we had some discussions, and we agreed to collaborate to bring ACAP to Hall County. So that's what I'm doing here today. And we are going to, we're happy to have Cheryl Kelley speak with us today. Cheryl works with the Georgia Legal Services here in Hall County. I should have had my phone because I had all of the information on Georgia Legal Services and what they do and what they can do. But a little bit about Cheryl. She got her undergraduate degree in industrial management from the Georgia Institute of Technology. Then she went to Georgia State and became a lawyer, and she practiced, you don't mind if I add that, right? No. She practiced law for 25 years, and then she decided at that point that she was interested in pastoral care, and so she has a master's degree in practical theology, and she's a certified spiritual director, and she had a little bit of career change and decided that with her background and with her interests, she wanted to work with Georgia Legal Services. So GLSP's mission is to create equal access to justice and opportunities out of poverty by providing services on a wide range of civil matters, including family law, housing, access to public benefits, eviction prevention, farm workers' right, access to education, and also helping to understand the needs of older adults and how to manage them within the legal framework. She also, the Georgia Legal Services, assists with issues particularly relevant to seniors, including access to health care, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, long-term care, guardianship issues, advanced directives, and more. And obviously Cheryl is very well suited to talk about having those difficult conversations based on her background. And I guess that's when I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl. Oh, good, and he put up your slides.
Yes.
All right.
You've got now.
So I just want you to know that this is being recorded. At the end of her presentation, we cut the recording. So if you have personal questions, don't be afraid to ask them, because those will not be part of the archive recording. So do you come right back down, Gary, or good to go? And do you come down to cut it off, or you just cut it? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you this morning. I'm going to try and cover an awful lot of ground in 45 minutes, but I will hang around afterwards and answer all the questions that you may have. So I did want to say that don't be afraid to have questions, don't be afraid to ask questions, but we can do it at the end. Okay. I mean, that said, if you do have an immediate question as we're coming up, raise your hand and don't hesitate to interrupt me, but know that we will have time to really get into details more at the end. This is kind of an overview of resources that are out there. And I did want to let you know just a little bit about GLSP, Georgia Legal Services Program. We work with, in conjunction with Atlanta Legal Aid, to provide legal services to all over the state of Georgia. Back in the late 60s, we realized that 70% of the lawyers in the state of Georgia live in the 5 metro counties, and that getting service in areas outside of those 5 metro counties was really, really difficult. So Atlanta Legal Aid does Fulton, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Cobb, and what's the other C one? Clayton, South End, Clayton counties, the Atlanta area, and Georgia Legal Services does the other 154 counties for the state of Georgia. And we try to provide legal services to low-income folks in those counties. I work here in the Gainesville office, and out of the Gainesville and Athens offices, we cover the 27 counties in the kind of northeastern corner of the state. And so we do specialize in services for low-income folks, and we work on issues of domestic violence and housing preservation and public benefits preservations. But somebody has already asked me, we also partner with the state and have an initiative called the Elder Law Action Program, which is funded in part from a grant administered by Legacy Link and from the Atlanta Regional Development Corporation, and it specially focuses on needs of people over 60. And for people over 60, the income guidelines that apply to a lot of the rest of our services do not apply. So if you're working with somebody over 60 that needs some help on an advanced directive for health care, a financial power of attorney, which is the three things that we do first in this kind of context and what is going to be the basis of this conversation. But we can also help with Social Security issues, with Medicaid issues, with access to health care, with nursing home issues, discharge. We get a lot of nursing home discharge cases, and know that we can help with that. And that the strict income guidelines don't necessarily apply if you're over 60. So that's what the ELAP grant is. Please don't hesitate to call us if we can help. I have brochures up here with all our phone numbers and all that kind of stuff. So be sure and grab them on the way out. And those are the kinds of issues that we look at. Today's topic is dreaded discussions. And those dreaded discussions in a legal context often come up in the context of doing what we call the senior special, the 3 documents that we do for most seniors who come into our office, which are your will, your advanced directive for health care, and your financial power of attorney. Wills obviously name the people who are going to manage your estate after your death and direct how you want your resources to be allocated, where you want them to go. They can also do things like if a senior has a guardianship over a grandchild, for example. I mean, you can set up there are ways to manage testamentary guardianships, just like young people can set up guardianships for their children through their wills. I mean, that kind of stuff applies for seniors. Advanced directives for health care is the document that sometimes is called a living will. You might see them from the hospital. There is a statutory form for that, and in that document you designate the person that you want to make decisions for you in the event that you can't actually make those decisions for yourself. And there are a couple of ways that could happen, and you designate when the directive is effective and who the decision maker is. And then the document lets you give some specific instruction for your caregiver about the kinds of choices that you would make. You know, how much care do you want? What kinds of particular care you might like, and all of those are in the documents. And so those are decisions that, if you come to us and we're making those, helping you with your documents, those are the kinds of questions we're going to need to have answers to. And then there's also a financial power of attorney, which is a document that will allow someone else to take any financial action you could take, they could do on your behalf. And there is also a statutory form for that. It sets out, and that document names the person that you want to have those powers. It articulates when it's effective. You can have a financial power of attorney that lets you do a particular thing, like close a real estate deal. You can have a financial power of attorney that is only effective when your doctor says you can't take care of your finances yourself anymore. Or you can have one that says it's effective now, and this is the person that I trust to do things for me, and you do that while you are cognizant of what's going on, and you trust that person will only do it when they need to, and you can watch and see and make sure everything is okay in the meantime. So anyway, there are a lot of ways to handle that document as well. So those are all the kinds of questions that we're going to be asking if you come to get those documents prepared. And I can't tell you how many times I sit down with folks and they're like, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. And we can still do the documents and we can name the person and we can name the right person. But that's only the beginning. That's really only the beginning of the conversation. And if you then don't go tell the person that you've named and go tell them what you meant by all of this, then it's not as effective as it could be. And then you get to, I mean, my other hat is, I went to seminary, I've worked as a chaplain in the hospital, I have been the caregiver for elderly people in our congregation and had to make those decisions, and you don't want to be sitting there with a doctor going, so what do we do now? When you know that you've been named that person, but you don't really know what they would want in this context. So I'm wearing two hats. My lawyer says, yeah, you need these documents. And the pastoral counselor in me says, and there's some stuff to do first. So what I kind of want to talk about now are some ways to, or ideally do first. If you've already done them, you still need to go back and have conversations about what they mean and communicate that to your caregivers. So I want to offer you some resources for getting into that stuff. And while we're talking, the resources that I'm about to show you are from an organization called the Conversation Project. And they are focused specifically at end-of-life care. The principles and the ways of getting into it and the ways of preparing for conversations apply to all the other difficult decisions that come up when you're caregiving with aging parents about driving, about managing money, about where we live, about, all the things. So even though this is going to be talking about specifically about end of life and specifically about care at the end of life, it applies to all the other things. So I wanted to introduce you to the work of the Conversation Project. And you'll see that this is an ABC News story. Diane Sawyer was still there, so it's obviously 10 or 12 years old at this point. But the organization is still out there, and they're updating and putting out new resources all the time. And they have been working on this diligently since this story was aired, and they continue to do that. And so anyway, I want to introduce you to the Conversation Project.
And finally tonight, ABC News wants to join you in something right at the heart of the American family. How we can all help the people who care about us make decisions near the end of our lives. And 9 out of 10 of you have told us that we should all be talking about it at all ages, what we want. And yet only a fraction of us have done it. And we know it makes a huge difference in the health of the caregiver as well as those cared for. So ABC News has taken cameras inside a vital, loving family, part of a new community, deciding to have the conversation.
This is 85-year-old Norb and his daughter Maureen.
My dad is 85 today. He's still very, very active. He's a wonderful friend.
Throughout life, daughter and father have always talked about everything, except one thing: how to control the end of your life in the same way you control the prime of your life. So dad and daughter gather the family together, 3 generations, for an act of love.
And so now we're just asking that you share some of your thoughts about what you would like at the end of your life, so that we can honor your wishes.
They are part of something new underway for families in America that says having the conversation is a gift parents and children give each other. And there's proof of the difference it makes. Studies show depression rates plummet after a loss if the families have had the conversation. Renowned physician Dr. Atul Gawande says doctors and nurses see it firsthand.
When you're there in that moment and you're talking to the family and you're saying, how much will it bother your father if he ends up this way? And they say, more often than not, I don't know. We never talked about it. That it is incredibly traumatic for the family, for the doctors involved. There's often conflict. It can tear families apart.
So Dr. Gwande has become part of a team led by Pulitzer Prize-winning writer Ellen Goodman. It is called the Conversation Project. It is a kind of guide for families looking for a way to begin.
If we give them a way to talk about it and give people something to hang on to when they're afraid to start this conversation, they can do it and pass it on.
Families like the Jennings. They looked over the conversation guide before they sat down together. First, there's laughter.
My golf swing's still good.
And then Dad directly eases his daughter's guilt and worry about having put their mother in hospice.
I felt like that meant we were giving up on Mom.
She was in a lot of pain, and I think it was handled real well.
And next, Maureen asks her dad for clarity on what he considers a good end to a great life.
So if you were in a condition where you couldn't make decisions for yourself, how extreme would you want us to take measures to save your life versus letting you go?
Well, I think I'm ready to go anytime. You know, I wouldn't prolong anything. I mean, I've lived a great life. Pretty lucky. And because of you guys, you know.
Unexpectedly, a grandson is inspired to speak up about his own wishes for his own life.
That if there was no meaningful communication, that I would want you to stop trying to intervene.
We aren't ready for you to go that soon.
Well, we're not ready for you to go that soon either, so.
One by one, the others weigh in, all ages.
People don't do that.
Happy birthday, dear Grandma.
And with that, another family has joined a kind of estate planning for the heart.
Go!
The conversation beginning in America.
So please tell us your stories in the days ahead about ways to begin the conversation with family members of all ages. Or if you don't want to have it, tell us about that too. My colleague and my friend, anchor Bill Ritter from WABC, and I will be reading your emails and looking at the great photos you're already sending us of your families. So go to abcnews.com, find the conversation and the guide, and we'll be seeing you right there.
The idea about having a conversation and having it often and with different people helps you shift the focus from what's wrong, what's the matter with you, to what matters most to you. It helps shift conversation into what you value, what each person values, what's important to them. We cannot plan for absolutely everything, but we can make sure that people know what's most important to us and to the people that we care most about, and talking about those values both in our lives and in our healthcare, can help those around us make sure that they're confident that they're making choices that are consistent with what we want. And it's the foundation, those conversations are the foundation of a plan that will be there when you're ready and when it's needed, instead of scrambling around when you're sitting in the ICU going, now what? So I do really want to introduce you to the Conversation Project. This is their website, conversationproject.org. It's real easy. And if you forget it, you just Google, just Google Conversation Project. You will land there. This resource, I love it, like I said, because it just gives you a place to start. It gets the wheels turning. It is not the end all and be all. There are other resources out there. I heard somebody say before they're taking a death and dying class. I took a death and dying class. It was actually one of my favorite classes in seminary. But there are things like Death Over Dinner. There are other resources if you start actually looking. There's a book called by Roz Katz called "Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant?" And she is a New Yorker cartoonist who has done a cartoon book about living with her aging parents and all the things that have come up. So there are lots of resources out there that can help you have the conversation, and this is just one. But I want to encourage you to be willing to dive in and check it out. So conversationproject.org. Everything on there is free. It's downloadable. It is shareable. Their whole point is share it widely and get the word out. Do as much as you can. Come back and try again. There is a blog with lots of stories about real life experiences. There are tons of videos that you can see. There are tons of handouts and brochures. You'll see if you go to look out, there is a conversation guide, a starter guide that we're going to actually dive into a little bit because I just want you to see what's in it and get a tiny taste. But then there are guides for if your loved one already has dementia, how you might think about having these conversations. There is a guide about being a healthcare proxy. There is a guide about choosing a healthcare proxy. There are guides for if you're a caregiver of a child that has a serious illness. I mean, there are lots of resources out there. And like I said, they are completely free, downloadable, all that kind of stuff. But they do just encourage you to start the conversation, to think about it ahead of time, and give you some resources about how. And this is comic relief because this is heavy stuff. But they do say practice makes perfect. I don't know that it ever is going to get perfect. It is always going to be a little bit wiggly, but we can have some fun with that too. So I just wanted to offer you this little skit.
Mom.
Dad.
Sweetie, can we talk?
Everyone, dies.
So, how do you want to go?
Do you have a plan for your end of life care? Because I don't.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you're not getting any younger.
So I was binge watching Game of Thrones, which reminded me that everybody dies.
Oh. You've heard of the birth plan, right? It's like that. Only the opposite.
This stuff is awkward. It's gonna be awkward.
Could you help with something? Can we talk?
My biggest fear is losing you, and that I won't know how you want me to care for you toward the end.
Remember what happened to Aunt Maria? I don't want that to happen to you.
You've taken care of me your whole life. Now it's my turn to take care of you.
It is going to be awkward. And you're doing it out of a place of love with people you love. And the idea is to just get started. So to that end, I want to hand out this free conversation guide. This is just one of the many things that are going on. So because the hardest part is to figure out what do you want to say and how do you want to say it and what do you really need to know. And how is your loved one going to feel most loved in that process? Because, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to give back to the people that have given so much to us, right? And trying to make sure that we know what they would want. So we're going to spend just a few minutes exploring this guide. This conversation is much. What I'm hoping to convey is this really is a conversation. Conversations require an awful lot of heartfelt listening, right? It's not just this is what I want to know. This is what I want you to know. It's about listening to what's most important to your loved one and sharing what's most important to you. It's amazing what kinds of conversations you can actually have if you are willing to listen. I was telling somebody earlier, my kids are 28 and 29 and are both finally engaged and thinking about getting married. And my youngest is getting on a plane next month with his fiance, and he looked at us and said, I think maybe we should have a will and advance directive and all those things that we've heard you guys talk about for forever. Because, they have, my husband is also a lawyer, and so they, dining room tables at our houses are strange. But my 28-year-old has said, I think we need to do this. And because they're getting on the same plane, and because he's getting married, and, life transitions happen. And so it's important to revisit these questions as circumstances change. So I do want you to take a minute. I've passed out that guide, but for just a second, put it down. Put it down for just a second. I'd like you to take a minute to sit in your chair and take a deep breath. Feel your feet on the floor. And spend just a few minutes contemplating this question. When I think about the end of my life, what matters to me most is. It might be being with loved ones. It might be being pain-free. It might be being sure that you've said all the things you need to say. There is no right answer here. Spend a minute sitting with, when I think about the end of my life, what matters to me is what? Had a minute to think about it. Turn to page 3 in your conversation guide. And you'll see toward the bottom of the page, there is a blank that says, what matters for me at the end of my life is, let's spend about 2 minutes just writing what you've come to. Make some notes. It doesn't have to be a paragraph. It can be words or bullets or images